They told you the end of the world would come with fire and destruction. They said it would be punishment, a divine reconquest written in the heavens. But what if they were wrong? What if the true apocalypse wasn't destruction? Not the end, but a new beginning. Long before Sunday prophecies filled with holy books and news, the ancient Gnostics spoke of a secret revelation, a prophecy so subversive that it was hidden beneath centuries of silence. In their cosmology, they said that the world you see was not formed by the true God, but by a lesser creative force, the demiurge, a being whom the ancients described as Sackler, the fool. And in this illusion, humanity sleeps, innocent that something eternal still burns within it. But the Gnostic prophecy of the end times is not one of fear and pain, like the one you have always been taught. According to the hidden text, the revelation is not the end of creation. It is the end of deception, the raising of the sail, a revelation of what you truly are. You've always felt it from the outside. The silent knowing that reality is beginning to break down, that the old stories can no longer withstand the rising snowfall of consciousness. The Gnostics forced this exact moment. They said that when the material dream begins to shatter, the splendid divine within humanity would begin to sink, awakening from the long amnesia of matter and illusion. But this remembrance comes with resistance, because as the light rises, the powers of illusion fight harder to keep their dominion intact. These are the archons, hidden forces that the ancient Gnostics claimed were fueling ignorance, sowing confusion in the human mind. But even his kingdom has an expiration date, because according to Gnostic revelation, a new light is returning. What ancient texts call the illuminator of wisdom, a force that reappears in every century to remind humanity of its divine splendor. So the end of the century, they said, is not a fall from grace, but a return to it. In this video, you will discover what these ancient scriptures truly reveal about the true nature of human death, and why this revelation not only turns all belief about the apocalypse on its head, but unlocks the hidden reason why you are alive now. To understand the meaning of this prophecy, we must go back to a time when remembering the truth was heresy. Between the 2nd and 4th centuries CE, small circles of mystics scattered throughout the ancient world began to speak of a reality far beyond what we know. They called themselves Gnostics, those who know. Not believers, not followers, but knowers, seekers of a truth that could not be contained by temples or scriptures. Their writings, later hidden in the soil of Egypt, were discovered in 1945. The Nag Hammadi Library, a collection of writings that would rewrite everything we thought we knew about the ancient spiritual world. Hidden among them was the apocalypse of Adam, a revelation said to have come directly from the first man. But in this version of the story, Adam was not a sinner expelled from Egypt. He was a being of light who descended from a higher aeon, the pleroma, the realm of divine fullness. His fall was not moral, it was cosmic. He and Eve were luminous beings who had once walked in glory. But when they entered the material world, their light dimmed, said the Gnostic, by a lesser creator known as the demiurge, the blind artist who was deceived by the source. This was the beginning of the illusion. In Gnostic belief, the true God, infinite and beyond all forms, did not create this world of opposites and decay. They said it was the demiurge who formed it and placed the powers of illusion to guard it. Humanity's divine mirror was imprisoned in flesh, trapped within the cycle of birth and death. The wrong dream for the real. But the Gnostics also spoke of a promise, a moment when remembrance would return. They called this time the final aeon, a period in which humanity would reclaim its divine birthright and the illusion would begin to dissolve. In Adam's apocalypse, the prophecy unfolds through a series of cosmic events: floods, visitations, wars between kingdoms, or metaphors for consciousness, rising and falling throughout the centuries. The flood, they said, was not punishment for sin, but in their view, an attempt by a kindred god to uplift those who carried the light of knowledge. A symbolic war about the Gnostic himself, but not all were lost. Those who carried the hidden light survived, guided by messages from the greater aeons. The text even names a mysterious figure, the illuminator of knowledge, who appears again and again throughout time, bringing reminders to humanity when darkness grows deepest. And always the cycle repeats: fallen revelation, concealment and awakening, illusion and liberation. The Gnostics called this the divine spiral, history not as a direct line to revelation, but as a pattern of remembrance and forgetting across all worlds. The power behind these revelations was precisely why they were hidden, because a humanity that remembers its own divinity cannot be governed, and a world that sees through illusion cannot be controlled. But hidden beneath centuries of fear, empire, and dogma, the prophecy survived, waiting for the moment when it would rise again. And as the world becomes more chaotic, flooded with confusion and noise, this ancient prophecy spreads once more. But what does this truly reveal about our destiny? And what did the Gnostics really mean by the end of the world? The answer to these questions not only shatters the heart of illusion, it reveals what reality itself is hiding from you. The Gnostics never saw the apocalypse as destruction. They saw it for what the word truly means, a revelation, the moment when the long-hidden truth is revealed. In Greek, apocalypsis means to reveal, and the Gnostics said that this revelation doesn't happen to the planet, but to the mind, when perception itself begins to awaken. This is the heart of the Gnostic prophecy, that the world will end when humanity remembers who it truly is. According to the apocalypse of Adam, this world is not the state of divine creation. It is a field of witness, a cosmic hall designed by forces that want you to forget your origin. The demiurge, that blind architect of matter, created this world as a reflection of the true divine realm, but distorted, inverted, and incomplete. And yet, hidden within each human being, a mirror of the pleroma still shines. It cannot be destroyed, only hidden. This mirror is your consciousness, the silence witnessed behind your thoughts. This is what the Gnostics call the unquenchable thirst, the fragment of eternity that not even the lowest powers can touch. But this is where the prophecy becomes deeper. They said that when enough mirrors awaken, when enough humans begin to remember, the whole illusion begins to crumble under its own weight. The closing of the illusion is not the end of life, it is the end of forgetfulness. The floating of Genesis, they said, was not a punishment for sin, but a war against remembrance. The lesser creator, frightened that humanity might claim divine knowledge, released the waters to defeat it. But certain souls, bearers of the hidden flame, survived. They became the ancestors of those who would one day awaken again. From their lineage, the text tells us, arose 400,000 hidden souls of light throughout time, concealed among ordinary people, awaiting the sign to remember. The prophecy states that these souls helped dissolve the dominion of the lower powers simply by recognizing their true divine origin. At that time, they indicated they would come at the end of the age, known as the last century. But the awakening does not come as a single event. It arrives in waves through teachers, messages, and inner revelations. The apocalypse of Adam speaks of a mysterious figure who appears 3 times. Throughout cosmic history, the illuminator of wisdom. Not a man, but a recurring embodiment of truth, a light that enters the dream when darkness reaches its peak, reminding us that it is always darkest before the dawn. Each time it does not come to save the world, but to remind it of what it already knows. And here is the revelation that few understand. The illuminator is not a single being. It is a wave of consciousness that moves through time. It is the same light that animated the prophets, the mystics, the rebels of every age, and it lives within you too. When you remember, even for a moment, you become part of that wave. You become the fulfilled prophecy. That is why the world struggles the hardest when you begin to see. Because every awakening shames the illusion. And now, at this moment in human history, as chaos rises, as old systems give way, as truth feels distorted and unstable, this is what the Gnostics said would precede the great revelation. The Gnostics said that the world would not end. Only the false world built on deception would, when the structures of illusion could no longer sustain themselves. But to truly understand what is happening, you must see the deeper mechanism behind it. Because when you realize that the end is not destruction, but the light reclaiming its forgotten reflection, everything changes. Every awakening evokes its shadow, and the moment the light begins to rise, opposing forces awaken as well. These forces, the arcana as the Gnostics called them, flood the illusion through human thought. Their creator, the demiurge, was said to rule not through violence but through belief, convincing humanity that matter is all that exists and that salvation must be sought outside of oneself. But this too is part of the test. In the Gnostic view, these forces are not demons to be feared. They are the guardians of the labyrinth. They govern the dream until the dreamer remembers that he is dreaming. And that moment of remembrance, when the illusion can no longer deceive you, is the beginning of liberation. Adam's Apocalypse reveals that, while divine light awakens in humanity, opposing forces panic. They ask their king, "What is the power of these humans who are in his presence, who were taken from the place of light?" They gave dominion from his hand. In other words, the very act of awakening threatens the entire architecture of illusion. The prophecy describes this as a great cosmic disturbance, a beating not of the earth, but of consciousness itself. And then something extraordinary happens. A dark shadow covers the hidden skies. The eyes of the dark rulers grow dim. Their ions begin to break down. Fire, light, and wind spread through the cosmic structure, not as destruction, but as dissolution. The Gnostics said that this fire is not punishment, but purification. It burns away everything that is not real, all false identity, all illusion, all lies about who and what you are. And from above the hidden heavens, luminous clouds of light descend. They carry messages, radiant beings whom the text calls Abrais, Sablo and Gamaliel. They are not angels of wrath, but saviors of remembrance, architectural forces sent to lift awakened souls beyond the reach of lower powers. The text says they will be like those angels, because they are not strangers to them, but they work on the unmissable seed. You are never a stranger to the higher realms, you came from them. And when the false world slips away, those who remember do not die, they return. This is the true meaning of revelation. It is not judgment, but return. It is not punishment, but recognition. Even death, the Gnostics said, is merely a candle, a trick of perception that supports the illusion of separation. But for those who remember, they pass through it untouched. In this latest revelation, a holy baptism is described, not of water, but of knowledge. This is the baptism of those who know eternal knowledge. The text says through living water. The living water is consciousness itself, the stream of divine consciousness that cleanses forgetfulness. It is the ultimate initiation to be submerged in the truth of one's own origin until nothing real remains. And as this light spreads, as more and more beings awaken, the cosmic material itself begins to fade like a dream after awakening. The sun and moon lose their power, the heavens age, and the architects of illusion fade into the light from which they came. And what remains is the eternal. The Gnostics taught that this final dissolution is not something to fear, but to welcome. It is the raising of the last candle, the revelation that there was never a separation to begin with, because the light that returns to the source was never truly lost, only forgotten where it came from. And this is humanity's destiny, not to escape the world, but to awaken within it until the illusion of separation fades. And that is where this prophecy becomes more than a myth or ancient text. It becomes your invitation to remember. So what does all this really mean for you? Sitting in this small eternity between matter and spirit, the Gnostics would say that prophecy is not written in the stars above, but within the gaze that looks at them. True revelation does not begin in the sky, but in perception. Every time you doubt the surface of things, every time you stop running from the silence within you, a piece of the old world falls away. The illusion is not broken by darkness. It dissolves through awareness. The living water spoken of in ancient texts is not something to seek. It flows quietly when you are still strong enough to feel it. The stream of consciousness that was never born and will never die. You feel it in those breathing spaces between thoughts, in the calm that watches the waves of emotions pass by. This silence is their divine mirror, the fragment of the pleroma that shines through the human form. If the archons feed on forgetfulness, noise, and fear, then the opposite, consciousness and presence, nourishes them with the blood of life. Each time you remember that you are not the thought, but what sees the thought, your brain drifts away a little further. Remembrance has always been the true ritual, not a ceremony, but a simple reminder. When rage passes through you, it is merely energy seeking its way home. When rage appears, look gently upon the one who is afraid, and in that gaze the rage empties into the light. This is baptism, not of water, but of knowledge. No prince can give it, no temple can contain it. It happens in the silent recognition of what you have always been. The Gnostics kept this secret within their symbols and myths, that salvation is not an escape, but a remembrance. The world does not change before the remembrance. It only changes once the remembrance returns. And as each soul remembers, the illusion fades further. Prophecy calls this the return of the light, when the Furies awaken through the dream, illuminating others who are ready to see. Perhaps it begins in an ordinary moment, the silence before dawn, the pause before a word, the sacred space between thoughts. There, the same light that once moved through Adam and Eve before the ground, through Noah's lineage, through the illuminator of knowledge, moves again within you. When that light looks through your eyes, the world is no longer something to fixate on or flee from. It reveals itself as what it always was, a divine field pretending to be asleep. And you, the dreamer who remembers, become its mirror. The prophecy is fulfilled calmly, not in fire, but in recognition. And if you want to delve deeper into this remembrance, you can access my free book, Escaping Illusion, a Gnostic Guide to Reality. Inside, you will find simple yet powerful methods to calm the mind, deepen awareness, and live from the divine space within. You will find the link in the description. The prophecy was never about the end in a literal sense. It was always about the end of forgetting. The Gnostics tried to tell us it was never destruction. It's a sacred revelation, where force dissolves and reality moves on. They saw humanity not as a fallen species awaiting salvation, but as divine fragments of light slowly remembering their origin. And when enough of these fragments awaken, when the space within each soul begins to break with the memory of home, the illusion loses its grip, and the dream of separation ends. This is the Gnostic prophecy, revealing the true destiny of humanity, not to die but to be transformed, not to await salvation, but simply to remember, because the end times were never meant to terrify you. They were meant to liberate him. The fire they spoke of is not the fire of destruction. It is the fire of recognition. It's breaking down now inside you, stripping away everything that isn't true. The forest isn't punishment. It's consciousness washing through the illusion, cleansing the brain of its old slumber. And the return is not the arrival of something new. It is the remembrance of what never was. You are that remembrance. The illuminator walks again, but not as one being, as many, as each soul that is expected. The illuminated clouds of prophecy are already descending, not from the heavens above, but from within the human heart. Every act of awareness, every moment of compassion, every breath taken in truth is light returning to itself. As you continue to witness the chaos of the world, remember not to spiral into fear and reaction, because behind it all, something sacred and extraordinary is emerging. The prophecy is not in the future. It is happening now through you. And as the old story ends, the divine remembers through your eyes. There is nothing to fear, only revelation, light, and return. If this message resonated with you, help it reach others by liking this video and subscribing to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Did these words help you see beyond the fear? The light was never lost, it was just waiting for you to remember.